My name's Tanner Gregory. I am Jesus Christ. It's April the 16th, 2026. Nobody really knows that I'm Jesus Christ at this point. Just not a lot of people really know that. Even with the 1260 days and all that stuff, nobody really knows that yet. But today I want to talk a little bit about who I am and who I'm definitely not. Okay? Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't spend a lot of time sitting around like, oh, the children and love thy neighbor and, quoting scripture to people and all this kind of stuff. I don't do that. I don't even give to charities like the change that's left over from my transaction at, Walgreens or whatever. I don't say, would you like to give to the children's hospital or something like that? I don't do it, to be honest with you. And mostly I think that it's just a big conglomerate and it wouldn't probably reach them anyways. But I don't even really, I feel bad now saying that, but in all honesty, that is true. I don't ever do it. I don't even really think about it, to be honest with you. It's a little bit of a conviction personally to say it out loud, but as far as what's going on in my mind at that time, I'm not thinking, oh, I feel bad for not giving them this money, So, I mean, as far as, all the love these people and so much mercy and give forgiveness and every thought in my head being absolutely pure or anything like that is simply not going on, okay? I spent a lot of time focused on my personal, like, I've spent a lot of time thinking about business. You know what I mean? My dad has a pretty big business. I've spent a lot of time studying marketing and different type of marketing methods to expand his business. And I've spent a lot of time running my own business and businesses over the years. And most of my focus has been towards that. I'm just going to be honest with you. Now, here's where it gets a little different with me. I was always kind of into it, but I was always really into the idea of it, but I just hadn't really found that information yet. And so I started watching Associated Press videos when I was 21 years old, and I just soaked it up. I mean, when I took in the information, it was like blissful to me. It was like peace. I was like, I'm in my dojo, my dojo, you know what I mean, of peace. And I'm sitting here watching these videos, and it's like everything just felt so perfect, and I just soaked up all that information, and then I eventually wound up watching CNN. Not watching it, but reading their articles. And I would read every single CNN article on their website every single day for a period of time. I was a Ron Paul follower and supporter, and I believed in what he said. I just didn't understand a lot of the Federal Reserve conspiracy aspects of it. I didn't really think that could just happen. Well, I didn't understand the government yet, or the 17th Amendment. That's the biggest thing that caused it, but and that's why they did it. But once I finally did find some type of information, it was basically incriminating information that I was privy to. Ended up sharing it with a lot of different people, but it drew me into okay, so the Federal Reserve is a conspiracy. And I spent countless hours studying not only that, but just the government in general. But a lot of like, then it's just most likely that the conspiracy thing is actually true. You know what I mean? So I started to go more open eyes into all of it and learning about 9/11. I learned a lot about the Federal Reserve. I learned a lot about central banking, and it's a big conspiracy. I didn't learn, how the 17th Amendment created the Federal Reserve, and I think that's because a lot of people really don't know that. It was artificial intelligence. I used the artificial intelligence to write a book on that. I just assumed that was the case because the dates of the 17th Amendment and the Federal Reserve. And so I said, artificial intelligence proved this, and now I'm actually a published author at this point. on the subject of that, and hopefully a lot more people have the opportunity to learn that. You know what I mean? That the 17th Amendment was created conspiratorially in order to create, because it's the reason is because it's a dominion issue. So when the states are running their own show, when they're running the federal government, they're not interested in the federal government getting out of line. No, they can get out of line themselves, but they're not interested in the federal government doing it. And then they don't end up getting out of line themselves as much because freedom of travel from within the United States, then they're in competition with each other. It's a really good setup. I didn't understand that, okay? I guess I always get sucked into talking about that because it's so crazy. But I really had a good, strong understanding of what the government should have been doing. You know, limited government. You know, the welfare is bad. The war on drugs is bad. I learned that from watching a 60 Minutes video of Ron Paul, and they never ended up publishing it. They never ended up putting it on television. It was about how, you know, the war on drugs, and I watched that and I was like, really? So, and I started thinking about it, I was like, oh, wait a second, I'm an adult and they're doing this. You know, this country has more people locked up than any country in the world. I'm sure still. It's gotten better over the last, I don't know, 5-6 years as I recall, but so they're slowly getting better. But I mean, we have just megatons of humanity locked up right now over, oh yeah, you were smoking marijuana. Here's the deal, and this is really what it comes down to, okay? Once you're an adult, your physical body, you own it. You understand? Like, you can do whatever you want to yourself. You understand? And they're having a hard time understanding that. Well, anyways, so what I'm trying to get into is, so I started to learn, you know, a lot of different, started to learn. By the time I was 27, I understood, you know, that the war on drugs was wrong by the time I was 23. And then by the time I was 27, I was already understanding, you know, we need to completely legalize all drugs. We need to end welfare, end Obamacare, end Social Security, end all that shit, because the government's not entitled to your money. This person, but all that stuff came after the 17th Amendment. Understand that. The income tax, all of it. Okay? Putting people in jail for, you know, what they do with a prostitute is ridiculous. And even what somebody looks at on their computer, if they look at child pornography, they could be investigating something. You actually don't know that. But if they find it on your computer, oh, you're a criminal. How? You don't even know if that person, what? Because why? Because it's their moral imperative. They're a fucking jackass loser. They have nothing going on in their life. They have no fucking self-esteem, no self-worth. And then they go to the fucking church and then they somehow get this fucking idea that they're superior to every other motherfucking person because that's all they have to latch onto in life. And they're disgusting pieces of shit. That's a big part of it. And I'm sure the 17th Amendment has a lot to do with that too. Look, this is what I wanted to get into with you. And I'm sorry for rambling for so long. I, as Jesus Christ, okay, do not have this type of mindset that says, oh, well, I'm just such a good person, all this and all that, okay? You might get beat up talking too much trash to me. You know what I mean? If you ask me for something, I may not even be interested in giving it to you. You know what I mean? That's just period. You know, that's just me. You know what I mean? I'm not out there telling everybody to save the children and quoting scriptures to people or anything. I don't even go to church. I don't even read the Bible anymore. I've read a lot. I've read most of it. But what I'm saying is that I don't know if this was by design or that's just the best thing that they could come up with. But mostly what they're interested in is resolving the government. That's all they've ever really been interested in, to be clear with you. All the other stuff that they did by and large, well, it was just to guide humanity in the correct direction. So I can't say it's all about the government, but if I had to guess, I would say, I mean, 99% of it is about the government, because if you don't have your government, then nothing else is going to work. And I mean, even, stoning people to death, from Moses to Jesus Christ's crucifixion to everything that he had to say about um, marriage, that's a subconscious bargain. But what I'm saying is that if you actually read the Bible and see what he was saying, but Jesus Christ spoke in parables, so maybe he's supposed to be this holier than thou type of person, whereas I'm supposed to just more or less be somebody who, I mean, when I was in elementary school, my brother had just died, and my mother and my dad had just gotten a divorce, and I was living with my mom, and she was busy most of the time. And I prayed a lot to God, I want to be popular, I want to be popular. And then I became popular. And then I was like, well, I want to be the kind of person who's nice to the popular kids and the unpopular kids. I want to be like special, something different, you know what I mean? Something that people haven't ever seen before, And I guess you could say that around that time I was as close to being, I guess a Jesus Christ, type of person. But generally speaking, I mean, I listened to violent music, I played violent video games. I hung out with a little bit of more of a rough crowd, and I liked it. That's who I felt like who I was. I understood who I was from early on. Even by the time I was in the first grade, I knew I wasn't going to be like the nice crowd, part of the nice crowd. I never wanted that. And so that's kind of what I'm saying too, is like this whole thing with Jesus Christ and me being Jesus Christ. It's hard to believe, but I wanted you guys to have a chance to know him. Don't ever let anybody tell you he was some kind of holier than thou person, and that you should measure up to some kind of holiness and you have defied Christ and all this kind of shit. I was never like that. That's not ever who I was. You know what I mean? For real. So, but anyway.